So, highly sensitive people are considered to be deep thinkers. Many HSPs are introverted and therefore spend a lot of time with themselves in their own beautiful inner imagination. Welcome to today's episode. My name is Robert, and today I want to talk with you about spiritual gifts as a highly sensitive person. To begin with, what does spirituality or being spiritual actually mean? So there are many definitions out there, and I just picked one by the Royal College of Psychiatrists, and I'm going to read that to you now. Spirituality involves the recognition of a feeling or sense or belief that there is something greater than myself, something more to being human than sensory experience, and that the greater whole of which we are part is cosmic or divine in nature. I believe that spirituality definitely means something different for every one of us. Some people might even grow on and do not want to do anything to do with it. For them, spirituality is often mentioned in the same breath as esotericism. On the other hand, others would consider themselves as absolutely spiritual souls. I think for me, actually, spirituality means the fascination of the inexplicable. So the dynamics I can feel, but I cannot really explain. There is something, some kind of energy which some people would describe as divine. For example, if you sense some kind of attraction for someone, for something, like the reasons why I actually feel in a specific way, if I think about something, if I'm excited for something. This is what I mean by spirituality. These things I can sense pretty clearly, but not really put into words or really describe or define where they come from. So are highly sensitive people more spiritual than non-sensitive people? Honestly, I think that is a question which is pretty hard to find a clear answer for. I would argue that there are some traits that benefit the presence of spirituality in HSPs. And I found a wonderful blog post by Jules De Vito here, where she discusses this very question in depth. I will definitely link the blog post and all articles and definitions in the podcast description, so feel free to check it out. From my own experience and what I observe in the world, many highly sensitive people in particular struggle with mental challenges such as anxiety, worries, and depression. Studies also show a correlation between individuals with a sensory processing sensitivity and a predisposition to depression. Also link that in the description. So I want to quote Benham here from that study, and he concludes several studies inferred that becoming easily over-aroused due to the perceiving more stressors promoted learned helplessness, which led High-SPS, sensory processing sensitivity individuals to poorer mental health. Highly sensitive individuals struggle more with mental challenges than others. Also, the strong perceptual and processing abilities of HSPs mean that they are generally more concerned with themselves and inner processes. The constant strong stimuli that are perceived lead to unpleasant overwhelm and over-arousal. Many HSPs already experience this overload very early in their lives. However, people around them often cannot really deal with it, and they just say then, I can't understand that. Don't be so sensitive. Maybe you have heard these sentences before then. So HSPs are then even more confused by such statements, and they are ashamed and feel like aliens after that. From these painful experiences with other people follows a logical retreat into themselves. And this, by the way, is very pleasant for many HSPs anyways, because many of them are introverts. So what happens next? I think the following preoccupation with oneself and this overload results in permanent search. The search for calm, for liberation, for self-discovery and answers. And I personally believe that it is this search that drives hypersensitive people into spirituality. It is a search for the why. What is the meaning behind all the suffering I experience so intensely? What is life trying to tell me? Does God feel the need to punish me so much? Who is God? Is there a God? Or anything else? What is the meaning in this? And why me and not the others? From these questions, many people, especially highly sensitive people, derive a kind of purpose for themselves. Or as Dr. Elaine Aaron pointed out in one of her beautiful articles, some would argue that we were created by the divine in order to be a witness to or guide others to the numinous. This journey towards spirituality is accelerated by intense dreams and a distinct intuition, which many highly sensitive people also experience for themselves. Some would also describe it as the sixth sense that highly sensitive people have to experience death and use it for themselves, which in turn should favor the experience of spirituality, and of course ultimately summarize the perception and processing of experiences on a deeper level. At this point of the episode, I also want to share my personal journey, how I found my spirituality, especially as a highly sensitive person. And I have to say, I don't really remember where it exactly started, but I remember that it definitely came out of severe pain, of really painful experiences, of sickness, of the search for answers and the search for relief, probably. So when I was 15, 16 years old, I first realized that my body was kind of sick. So I was like easily getting infects like colds. I caught viruses super often, like every 6 weeks I was sick, I was done, I was in pain, and I was questioning it. I was looking for real answers. Why me? Why am I getting sick that many times? There was a lot of frustration involved in that process, and I also was sick a lot when I was younger, so I often had like migraine, I had like strong headaches when I was a kid, and this deep pain was bringing up all these questions, like why is that me? Like everyone else is fit, everyone else is healthy, doing sports, living their teenager life. I'm sick every couple weeks. It's always in life like you live it forward, but you understand life backwards. So I started to look into these topics when I realized I'm sick like every couple weeks. I was sick when I was a child. I need an explanation for that. I need a solution for that. I need an answer for that, because I feel that there is obviously something wrong with me, or that there is some kind of task that I have to solve, obviously, to live a more healthy and fulfilled life, a life with less sickness and less pain. My kind of search began in that age, like after I finished school, because I decided to buy myself a bunch of books. So I got myself a couple books for nutrition, and I started reading, just casually looking for answers, like how can I improve my body? How can I improve my health? How can I improve my nutrition? Does that influence my health? Does that influence the factor that I'm getting sick again and again? By doing that, I was finding some first answers. At least I thought at this point that I was finding answers, because I found out, hey, my body is definitely underweight, and hey, my body is also like stressed to the max, because I was doing like sports 6 times a week. I went to the gym like crazy and trained and worked out. I also did not sleep enough. So I figured out like a first, I would say, like layer of answers for myself, which I try to like catch up with and then improve by finding this first stack of solutions, I would say. And I just thought like, okay, I want to dig deeper. I want to know more about it. So what can I do like after reading the books? So I just applied for food and nutritional sciences because I wanted to like find out more about my body and my health, to find more answers, right? To optimize it, to become a healthier individual, because I was so sick of all this sickness I experienced before that I wanted to get out of the situation. The more I searched, the more I studied nutritional sciences, health, my body, sleep, stress, the psyche. The more I got into that, the more chapters opened, right? So the more I knew, the more I realized, the less I know. There was so much opening up and unfolding when I dig deeper and deeper and deeper. So anytime I found a solution for something, so let's say I just slept more and that lowered my stress because I was like recovered way better after increasing my sleep. It went pretty well for a couple amount of time, but it still did not solve the problem completely. So after that, other problems appeared, like for example, like skin problems, or I got sick again after a couple months, and I was just like constantly looking into more topics. Anytime I thought I would have found a clear answer for one of my problems, one of my questions I had, another chapter opened and I was starting over and over again to search. So if it wasn't the food that made me completely feel good, was it the sleep then? And if it wasn't the sleep, were it in the relationships? What was causing like permanent sickness and also this feeling of permanently struggling with stimuli, with stressors from the environment? Because I didn't know back then that I was highly sensitive. I was constantly looking for new answers to improve my state of health, of my body and of my psyche. After looking for answers over years, I just realized that endless searching is not the answer. What is the answer? After realizing that I cannot find a solution for every topic, for every question I'm dealing with, especially when you dig into health and you're figuring out topics like high sensitivity, like personality disorders, like personal traits, childhood trauma. If you dig more into these topics, which come after you found out about your body, nutrition, fitness, when you see that from this bird's eye perspective and you dig more into it and into it and into it, at some point you just realize that there is something in it, in all these kind of topics that you cannot really explain. This is why I think it's so beautiful to just experience this inexplicable thing and just accepting it. And I think that is the area where actual research and science ends and spirituality begins. If you sense that there is something that is inexplicable, where you won't find an answer for, which you just cannot explain, and you just learn to observe it and accept it, I think then you're definitely in this spiritual state. And I had a discussion with my grandma recently, and she said, the only task we actually have on this planet is to be consciously aware of exactly that. So if there is something inexplicable, if there is something you cannot explain, you cannot find an answer for, stop the endless search. Instead, consciously observe it, accept it, and rebalance yourself again. Also, in my opinion, quite of a spiritual approach to health, not finding solutions. You cannot find treatments or medications for every disease. At some point, you just have to observe accept, and trust. So to conclude, there is no ultimate goal to find an answer to every question I had. There is nothing to understand. There is just true being presence. And that is what I believe when you are also on an endless search for answers, a true gift which can be addressed by the path of spirituality. Thanks a lot for listening, and I'm curious now, would you also consider yourself as a spiritual soul, or do you think that's esotericism? Definitely let me know in the comments on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you listen. Also subscribe to the podcast, check out the book list in the description, and I see and speak to you in the next episode.